I'm in Hualien 1 month after a major earthquake to see how people and businesses here are coping.
People trapped in Haiti's capital struggle to survive amid deadly gang violence. Over 500 migrant workers hired to work on a new airport terminal have disappeared. We learn more about why so many migrant workers leave their jobs. Plus, what's the buzz? How one beekeeper is helping to revitalize Taiwan's native honeybee population. A warm welcome to TaiwanPlus News. I'm Betty Chen. 1 month after a magnitude 7.2 earthquake hit Taiwan, the eastern county of Hualien is still dealing with the aftermath, including the devastating effects the quake and its aftershocks have had on local businesses. Reporter Reese Ayers is live for us in Hualien City. Reese, how are businesses there coping?
Barely is the answer, I'm afraid, Betty. Hualien feels a bit like a ghost town. Tourism is a major part of Hualien's economy, a county renowned for its majestic mountainous scenery. It's that very scenery that makes it prone to natural disasters. Now, the number of tourists willing to visit Hualien has plummeted since the quake, and with Sirocco National Park closed and aftershocks anticipated to continue for 3 to 6 months, those numbers may not recover anytime soon. And of the businesses I've been speaking to over the last few days, all have seen a significant drop in income over the last month, with some seeing as little as 10% of the business compared to the same time last year.
And what about support for those affected by the quake? Is any aid for the people and struggling businesses making its way there?
Well, there's plenty of aid coming in, particularly for people displaced by the quake. Around 1,200 people have been resettled while their homes are being assessed. Those households will receive some rental subsidies, and that's all part of a huge aid package of almost $1 billion signed in by the central government, which will also go towards restoring public facilities. Some of that money will also help to revitalize local tourism. There are plans to cooperate with tour companies to offer travelers more incentives to visit the area, but with some hotels operating at 1% capacity and employers forced to lay off workers, business owners say they'll need more than a few tourists and tax breaks to survive. But besides government aid, donations and charity drives are generating huge amounts of money for Hualien. The Hualien Earthquake fundraising project has generated around $50 million. And the hugely famous Taiwanese rock band Mayday have recently said that they'll stage a charity concert in Hualien, hoping to bring tourists from around the country back into the county. So as the entire country comes together to help restore this beautiful coastal city, everyone is really hoping that the worst that Mother Nature has to offer is behind them.
Thank you, and stay safe, Reese. That was Reese Ayers reporting live from Hualien City. As we just heard, Hualien is set to get some much-needed help from the government. To break down what's in that aid package, John Venturez has this report.
A month on from the magnitude 7.2 earthquake that rocked Hualien in eastern Taiwan, ruined buildings still wait to be torn down. But there's damage that can't be seen, too. The tourism industry that many locals rely on is in tatters, with hotels destroyed, attractions closed, and bookings sharply down. The cabinet says it has a plan to help.
投入的重建经费呢是会超过285亿，从优、从速、从简的方式，尽力来协助地方政府还有地方的灾民。
Around $507 million will go into fixing infrastructure, including railways, plus preparing a key local attraction, rockslide hit Sirocco National Park, for reopening. $180 million will go to help displaced people find new accommodation and rebuild their homes. This includes rental subsidies. And $126 million will go to helping businesses, with a special focus on boosting tourism with travel subsidies for visitors. The subsidies will be available for 3 months, starting from July. The vice premier is heading to Hualien Saturday to talk over this package with local officials.
那预计在这礼拜6，行政院副院长郑文灿会跟相关中央部会的人来到花莲，跟县府就所有的执行细节会有比较详细的一些讨论。
But some in Hualien aren't happy with the plan. The chief problem they have with it is that the tourism subsidies also cover neighboring Hualien County further down the coast. This area wasn't as badly affected, and with its tourism sector still intact, there are fears would-be visitors to Hualien will be siphoned off.
尤其是7月，他们即将迎接的是他们的热气球补助政策，把台东纳进去，确实会把花莲的这个观光效益严重的稀释掉。
Some in Hualien's tourism sector even say they may go to Taipei to protest this part of the plan, meaning Hualien's path to recovery looks to be a contentious one. Chris Ma and John Van Trieste for TaiwanPlus.
The Transportation Ministry and Tourism Administration are pitching in on these efforts to get visitors back to Hualien. Tiffany Wong was at one of their promotional events.
This is a temporary market in the halls of a Taipei metro station, and all the vendors are from Hualien. That's the epicenter of a magnitude 7.2 earthquake that rocked the country last month. Now, these vendors are hoping to boost the county's tourism industry and remind people of the products and sites that the county is known for, like rose quartz, which is found on the beaches of Hualien. 最新生意怎么样？
差很多。自从地震之后，花莲少了许多的游客，那现在比较平稳了。那希望大家能够再去花莲旅游，其实还蛮安全的。谢谢。
Hualien is home to the largest indigenous population in Taiwan, and vendors like these hope to showcase cultural products that can't be found anywhere else. 请问你们产品的特色是什么？
我们主要打的特色就是马告，就是珊瑚礁。我们太鲁阁族是原住民最常用的珊瑚礁。
The Transport Ministry announced over $160 million in funds to help Hualien recover, and some of that will be going to tourism initiatives, like offering subsidies on tour packages and hotels. Now, vendors will be here in Taipei for the next 2 days, but they're hoping that when they return to Hualien, they'll bring a few more tourists back with them. Kama Sri and Tiffany Wong in Taipei for TaiwanPlus.
Vice President-elect Beekeepers is pushing for Taiwan to be formally included in the U.S. defense supply chain.
Together, we can manufacture nearly anything as efficiently and reliably as anyone in the world.
Xiao gave a pre-recorded speech to a national security conference in Washington, D.C. She says Taiwan wants to join the U.S. Defense Department's security of supply arrangements, which prioritize military contracts and deliveries between the U.S. and partner countries. She says with Russia and China working more closely together in military affairs, Taiwan and the U.S. must cooperate to maintain their edge. Taiwan's main electricity supplier says new government subsidies and April's price hike should cut its losses significantly this year.
4月1号的电价调整11% 之后，会增加630亿，那再加上这1000亿，那另外我们考虑最近燃料价格回跌，估计今年的亏损可以缩小到100亿左右。
The subsidy proposal was proposed by the cabinet. Taipower originally expected to lose about $6.5 billion this year. Electricity prices are closely watched in Taiwan because they have a big impact on people's livelihood. Opposition lawmakers passed a non-binding resolution earlier this week calling on the government to freeze price hikes. They're also working on a bill requiring future hikes to be approved by lawmakers first. More than 500 migrant workers are missing after being hired to help build a new terminal at Taiwan's largest airport. Legislators say over 1,300 migrant workers were hired over the past 2 years for the project at Hualien Airport, with about 40% of those now missing. The Labor Ministry has asked construction companies and migrant worker agencies to respond to workers' demands for improved living conditions. It's unclear whether the missing migrant workers have returned to their countries or are still in Taiwan. It's common for migrant laborers in Taiwan to leave employers without notice. The government restricts their employment options and brokers impose heavy fees for changing jobs. To learn more about the difficulties migrant workers face and why they might become undocumented, reporter Wesley Lewis spoke to researcher Wu Jingru with the Taiwan International Workers Association.
The hundreds of migrant workers hired to build the new terminal at Hualien Airport remain missing. Why might they have chosen to leave their job and risk being undocumented?
As the construction work, usually it's very hard, very difficult, long working hours, and there is no overtime payment. So, and according to the information, some government officers thinking they might relate it to some trafficking. That means labor exploitation. The private broker agency always cause a lot of problem. If the government could take responsibility and to implement and try, especially the governmental project, construction project, the government to government direct hiring, I believe the situation like runaway, like labor exploitation will reduce very much more than the situation now.
What kind of conditions are these workers living in?
There might be deducted like dormitory fee, food and lodging, as we used to say, food and lodging fee. And also, since it's getting hotter, the air condition might be extra charged. So the long working hour, low payment, and the extra charge for this and that fees will be usually not make the situation unbearable.
What are the official channels the workers have for settling disputes with their employer?
They can try to reach out to 1955, although 1955 doesn't really settle the problem well, but at least that's a channel. Or they can reach out to the NGO, or they can reach out to even policemen.
Will this Hualien airport case impact the upcoming migrant worker deal with India?
I don't think the working condition in Taiwan is charming enough for them to take the risk to come to Taiwan, where there is no much Indian friends, Indian circle, Indian culture here. And on the other hand, the Taiwan government haven't prepared enough bilingual people for the Indian workers yet. I do hope not only the government serve the companies and the employers, but also they can serve the workers to give them more transparent information about what's the situation in Taiwan.
That was reporter Wesley Lewis speaking with Wu Jingru from the Taiwan International Workers Association. Taipei officials are cracking down on illegal building extensions that endanger public safety.
顶楼的部分，比如说你隔层3个以上的使用单元，寄存违建发生过火灾，还是说你没有装助警器，这部分我们都会优先处理。
In 2023 alone, the Taipei city government removed over 1,600 illegal extensions in the capital. But official statistics show that there are still more than 713,000 nationwide. Taipei usually tears down illegal extensions as soon as they're reported to authorities. But demolition may be put off if it's an older building that doesn't pose a threat to public safety. Stay tuned to TaiwanPlus News. Coming up after the break. University students gear up to showcase the country's cultures and traditions at this month's presidential inauguration.
For more stories from Taiwan and around the world, download the TaiwanPlus app.
Welcome back. You're watching TaiwanPlus News. Gang violence and political instability continue in Haiti, with many civilians trapped in a crossfire and struggling to survive. Maddie Anstruther has more.
People in Port-au-Prince are now risking their lives just to buy food at this market. Over the past 3 months, gang violence has rocked the capital of Haiti, leaving over 1,000 people dead and plunging the country into political crisis.
Des fois, où t'as vendu, bon, chaque on les comme ça, là, rien t'as vu, bon, t'as vendu notre bagage, l'autre cas d'attendre pour courir, on y a là obligé entre la caille sans rien. Bon, des fois, elle vient finir dans maison.
Gangs began launching attacks in the capital in late February. the government declared a state of emergency just days later. But it wasn't until last week that Prime Minister Ariel Henry agreed to resign, handing over power in secret to a transitional council made up of select politicians, a businessman and a religious leader, all routes out of the capital and now controlled by the gangs, leaving most people with no choice but to stay in the city as violence continues to surge. Nothing is getting in either. Last month, the UN warned that half the country's population was already experiencing acute food insecurity. Elsewhere in the city, those that have fled their homes find shelter in a makeshift refugee camp at a school.
Ça qui est difficile pour nous, pas assez moyen pour nous vivre, nous pas assez moyen pour gérer tête nous ati nous. Manque moyen pas.
As many Haitians are on the brink of famine, the Transitional Council appears to be struggling to maintain unity as it settles on naming a new prime minister. Gang leaders continue to demand political influence and amnesties and are threatening violence until these demands are met, which means continued uncertainty for the people of Haiti. Andy Schreer and Marianne Strother for TaiwanPlus.
The Philippine Navy is praising the French Navy following the conclusion of joint exercises in the South China Sea.
We are delighted to witness the collaboration and dedication of our navies in fostering a robust strategic partnership in this region. Together, we are committed to safeguarding our mutual interests, promoting our shared values of freedom and democracy, and addressing common concerns.
The two countries wrap up landmark naval drills on Thursday. It's the first time for France to take part in the Balikatan War Games, annual exercises usually held between the U.S. and the Philippines. It comes as Paris and Manila discuss a formal defense agreement. May 3rd is World Press Freedom Day, but media watchdogs say mounting political pressures are leaving journalists vulnerable. In its annual report on press freedom, Reporters Without Borders says governments around the world are failing to protect journalists. They warn that as political pressures increase, violence against journalists goes up as well. UNESCO has awarded its World Press Freedom Prize to all Palestinian journalists covering the war in Gaza. Over 100 Palestinian journalists have been killed since the war began, making it the most dangerous conflict for journalists in history. South Korea's parliament has voted to launch an independent investigation into the deadly Seoul Halloween crowd crush in 2022. The bill passed by lawmakers will create a special committee to look into what caused the incident and who was responsible, a process that could take over a year. Relatives of the 159 victims have long called for an independent probe since few top-level officials have been held accountable. A police investigation last year found that a lack of preparation and poor response were the main factors behind the incident. Temperatures have risen to record levels across South and Southeastern Asia amid a sweltering heat wave. The weather is causing mayhem in the region, and as Rosie Greninger reports, the heat is creating particularly difficult living conditions for those fleeing conflict in Myanmar.
Refugees in war-ravaged eastern Myanmar queue to collect water rations. Here at this displacement camp, they're forced to survive on limited water resources, using it for drinking, washing clothes and showering. But as temperatures become sweltering, the little they're given is nowhere near enough. According to the United Nations, more than 123,000 people have been forced to flee their homes in Kaya by the conflict unleashed by the military coup in 2021. And now, the heatwave plaguing South and Southeast Asia is adding uncertainty to the lives of those displaced and worsening the situation in these camps. This week, Myanmar recorded its hottest ever April temperature of 48.2 degrees Celsius. March and April are usually the hottest months in this region. But this year, the temperatures have been worsened by climate change and the El Nino weather pattern. Charity organisation Clean Yangon delivers water at least twice a week to camps for the internally displaced. With the rising petrol costs due to the military regime restricting fuel, transportation is becoming more difficult. Refugees in the camp say they often need to borrow water from neighbours and return it once they receive their next delivery, leaving them short for the next 4 to 5 days. Already struggling to access enough water to live, and now faced with record temperatures, the thousands displaced here are dreading the weeks ahead. Dolphin Chen and Rosie Greninger for TaiwanPlus.
As world bee populations face collapse, a small handful of beekeepers are working to revive Taiwan's wild forests with a resilient Asian bee. Sally Jensen with the Migrant to see what all the buzz is about.
Carefully checking on his hives, beekeeper Zheng Hongsong has been looking after around 100 of these colonies for over a decade. His is one of a handful of apiaries in Taiwan that raises native honeybees.
我继续养殖这一种、管理这一种东方蜜蜂，我觉得我也可以得到我生活上面的一个需要。越做觉得它是一个不错的东西，很值得推广，所以就全心投入。
There are nearly 1,000 professional beekeepers in Taiwan, and almost all of them raise Western honeybees introduced from abroad. They produce more honey and bring in more business than native Asian honeybees. But Zheng's native bees are more resilient to harsher weather and can better pollinate native plants and fruits, boosting the island's biodiversity. Here in northern Taiwan's cool, wet mountains is where native bee species thrive, as they're good at pollinating at mid to high altitudes. But as hardy as they are, external threats are taking their toll on these native bee populations. Asian honeybee colonies in Taiwan have plummeted in recent years, mostly due to a virus from China. And they're not alone. Bee populations around the world are collapsing due to climate change, pesticide use and habitat loss, which is why for Zheng it's more important than ever to raise this unique species.
那为什么会坚持？我觉得刚讲到是这个蜂蜜非常好吃，然后呢，它又对我们原始的环境扮演的很重要的角色跟责任，所以我觉得它要是存在。 对我们的环境有绝对正向的意义。
Many people prefer the taste of the organic native honey Zheng collects, saying it's not just the flavor that makes it unique.
And then it's incredibly important for our ecosystem to have healthy population of native bees. So I find this as a great example for food for collective wellness, something that's good for my health, good for even our businesses.
With the future of these essential insects under threat, the hard work of beekeepers like Zheng could help keep native honeybee populations thriving and let others share in the sweetness the bees bring to their lives. John Su and Sally Jensen for TaiwanPlus.
Taiwan's presidential inauguration is just weeks away, and some university students here are getting ready to put on a show on the big day. John Venturez gives us a sneak preview.
150 students from National Taiwan Sport University take to the field in formation. This is a rehearsal for one of the biggest events of the year, the presidential inauguration on May 20th. Students at this university make up 5 of the groups that will perform in the festivities. They include a taekwondo group, a baseball team, and a jazz cheerleading squad. The students will put on a tribute to Taiwan's athletes ahead of another of the year's big events.
更重要的是，今年2024年，台湾的这个台湾英雄将要前进巴黎奥运。
But athletic prowess isn't the only thing these performers will be showing off. Taiwan's cultures, especially those of its indigenous peoples, will be on full display.
展现出比较多外国那种的感觉，像我们这次的话，就主要是就是有我们本土文化。
非常谢谢学校给我们原住民这个机会，让我们能够发展原住民的文化。
The groups have just 2 more weeks of rehearsals left. And when dignitaries from around the world gather on the big day, these young performers will be aiming to leave a lasting impression. Delphine Chen and John Van Trieste for TaiwanPlus.
Thank you for watching TaiwanPlus News. You can visit the TaiwanPlus website or follow our social media for more stories from Taiwan and around the world. Finally, today we visit these Iranian Muslims performing Umrah, a year-round pilgrimage in Mecca. It's the first time they've been able to hold it in a decade since Iran restored ties with Saudi Arabia last year. I'm Betty Chen. Take care and see you next time.